Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast. It's your host with the most, Chris. Hope everyone's having an amazing day. I know I'm having a good day. Now let's get started with the podcast. Got a lot of stuff to get into today. First up, a big announcement for the C.A.V. Sports Podcast. If you guys follow me on social media, if you don't, make sure you follow me at C.A.V. Sports or C.A.V. Sports Podcast. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it, I got it. But I announced something big that's happening. It's the first time ever for the C.A.V. Sports Podcast. So June 16th through the 18th, there will be a convention here in Lubbock, Texas. It's called West Texas Comic Con, located at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center, and I will be in attendance. Also, on June 17th, I will be having a live episode of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast with special guest Butterbean. I'm very excited for this. This was a little bit of time in the making, but I'm so happy it's going, and this is going to be a very exciting moment for the C.A.V. Sports Podcast. So I can't thank the supporters I've got for a while. I also can't thank enough Goldmine Collectibles at West Texas Comic Con for allowing me to interview Butterbean the boxer at their event. It's going to be live in front of an audience, so if you guys are in town or coming to Lubbock, it is during Father's Day weekend, so if you need an idea, definitely go. But I will be there in attendance June 16th through the 18th, and on June 17th, I will be having a live episode of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast with special guest Butterbean, so make sure you guys tune in for that one. Next up, bigger announcement this past week. The Dallas Stars win it in Game 7 against the Seattle Kraken. Yes, we win it. It was stressful. It was very stressful. The Seattle Kraken is not an easy team. They're not easy. They went the distance in the first round, and now they went the distance in this one. And for a while, I thought the momentum was just shifting between the Stars and the Kraken. The high-scoring games in that series between the two teams was just crazy, in my opinion. There were times where I thought the Kraken might run away with this, and I thought the Stars are going to try to come back and take it away. But the final game, 2-1, it was very low scoring, and you can tell like the tension was high. Everyone was nervous, especially in American Airlines Center. But I'm so excited that we were able to pull off the win, 2-1 over the Dallas Stars, and I got my Stars cup to celebrate. Ooh, that drink feels so much better with a victory in it. Water, by the way. So now I'm going to keep going with the podcast. Congratulations to the Dallas Stars making it to the Western Conference Finals Championship. They will be playing, I believe, this Friday. So as of this recording, it is a Wednesday. So on Friday, they will be playing against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And I believe they're going to start the series in Vegas and then go about it that way. So Vegas is also not an easy opponent. They're probably like one of the top teams in the West. So I'm very excited because I think, going the distance with the Kraken and then being able to be a very, very physical, wild team, I like our odds. I think we can do it. I honestly think we can get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I'm very excited. And I think us beating the Kraken is definitely the momentum booster we needed to go up against the Golden Knights. I know I'll be watching and seeing what's going on. Alrighty, so first topic of the day, about the NBA. We have a lot to talk about, but I wanted to talk about the first thing that's going on. It's been buzzing everywhere, all over ESPN, SportsCenter, Fox Sports, you name it. Everyone's talking about it. The Ja Morant situation and him possibly facing suspension. So for those of you that don't know, Ja Morant got in trouble again. This time it was because somebody went on Instagram Live and videoed Ja Morant, listening to NBA YoungBoy and flaunting a gun on Instagram Live, and it was caught, and it was a disaster thing to happen. But so he met with Adam Silver again. I know Adam Silver was shocked that it happened again. I know he was, especially whenever he talked about it, you can just tell he was like genuinely shocked that it happened again with Ja Morant. Because let's keep in mind, this isn't the first time this happened. This is not the first incident with Ja Morant. We already had the first one with the Indiana Pacers with the laser attachment from a gun pointing at them at a bus. There was the whole 17-year-old incident at his house, and then the Foot Locker incident with his mom, and then the volleyball thing again. So this isn't like the first time Ja Morant's gotten in trouble with the NBA. This has kind of been a recurring thing with Ja Morant, and I think that's the concern right now. So, but I'm very disappointed. I'm very upset because I mean Ja Morant's a really good player. Like none of us can disagree. He is a phenomenal athlete. He's definitely a face of the NBA, as we know it. He has influence on so many people, etc., etc. But that's what makes it so disappointing. And what I think is worse is that he was already suspended for about 8 games the first time, saying that I'm going to change and whatever. And then he came back and this happened and now this happened. And that's what's very disappointing and like frustrating is like this guy has a career that a lot of us would love to get paid millions of dollars, have a Nike endorsement, have a Powerade endorsement, all these companies investing money in him, and he's just acting like it doesn't matter. And what frustrates me the most about it is it's kind of the people that go on Twitter and comment on others saying, "Well, Josh should be able to live his life. Let him live." Here's my problem, and it's not only like with athletes and like stuff like that. This is like general with people. When you say that, yeah, this person, tell them to go live their lives. I don't like when people say that just because the difference in that statement is that you're not the one that has to live with the consequences. The person that is, doing the action, like Ja Morant flaunting a gun, he's the one that's going to suffer the consequences, not the people, tweeting or messaging or commenting on others saying, well, let them live their life. No, because, yeah, it's easy to say from the outside. It's easy to say when you're not the one, committing the action. It's easy to say that. You can say that, but the person that is actually doing it, they're the ones that have to live with the consequences. Unless everyone that is saying that is going to be held responsible for Ja Morant. Unless you guys are going to come in and, say that I'm going to help him get out of this, whatever. Because, let's be honest, no one is. None of the followers or the comments or anybody like that is going to come to help Ja Morant if he gets kicked out of the NBA if this continues. Let's keep that in mind. You're not the one that has to live with the consequences. Just like how I don't have to live with the consequences with him doing that. And if I was someone saying that Ja Morant should just live his life, even though he's already gotten in trouble with the league and not care, then yeah, it's easy for me to say it. But because I'm not the one condoning the action here. I'm not the one in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger. And that's what I think is kind of like ridiculous in my opinion. And it's the same way with not just athletes, but like with regular people. If you've already gotten in trouble with, say, the law, you know what I mean? Like you got arrested for something, but yet you come, you go to jail, whatever, you come out and you still do the same action that got you in trouble the first time, and I say, go live their life. Yeah, it's easy because I'm not the one that's going to get arrested if they do it or if they get caught again or if you're the person that gets in trouble for a second time. Yeah, it's easy for me to say it because guess what? I'm not the one in trouble. You are. Am I going to be held responsible for your actions? No, because I'm not the one that committed them. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is that there are consequences to your actions. And it's not only just the regular people like you and me. It's also the athletes like Ja Morant. There are consequences to the actions you do. There are consequences to, possibly affiliating yourself with a group of people maybe you shouldn't be affiliating with. A good example that I heard earlier was that, there's good consequences. You work out, you're going to lose weight. That's a good consequence. There is stuff like that. You help somebody out, they may help you out later. You never know. You help out somebody, they may be a good networking partner. You know what I mean? You do a little side job for a little company, they may come back and give you an opportunity. You never know. That's good consequences, but there's also bad consequences like flaunting a gun on IG Live while you already just got in trouble with the NBA for other stuff that already happened. Now you're possibly on thin ice with the NBA. And that's what I think is frustrating because if Ja Morant keeps this up, he's going to run himself out of the league. Like, factor reality. Like, luckily, he's not just some random player, like, random person on the team or, like, in the G League, because he would have probably been out of the league. Like, let's be honest here. If he was doing that and the NBA saw that and he wasn't, like, the face of the NBA, I personally think that he would have been kicked out of the league already. They would have already, like, voided his contract and said, you know what, we don't condone that. You're out of here. And I think that's what that's what other people kind of don't take, consider that as well, is that he's already on thin ice, and that's with him being a big name star. If he wasn't, they would have not condoned it and let him and kicked him out of the NBA. They probably would have never let him back in the Memphis Grizzlies organization, and probably had to figure it out somewhere. But the path that Ja Morant is on, it's on the path of getting kicked out of the league, and that's not what we all want. I would love to see Ja Morant succeed. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he has, he can be great. He has been great. We've seen it. He's helped the Grizzlies get, be relevant. He's one of the top players in the NBA. We've seen it. But these actions that you do, and and you're okay with doing, and people being okay with you doing it, it's not right. And like another thing also with the person that recorded him, if I knew I was already in trouble, I would have told him put the phone down. Because I'm not gonna risk it. I'm just not. And I mean, funny enough, this is kind of an old saying, but I kind of live by it. If you think it's wrong, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Now, I've heard debates about this Ja Morant situation, if he should get suspended. I do think he should get suspended, because this isn't a first-time incident. It isn't. Like I said, the Foot Locker thing with his mom, the volleyball game, the Indiana Pacers with the laser. We've seen it. We've seen this happen. And it's not like it's something that is just a one-time incident. If this was the first time this ever happened, then I'm like, I don't think he should get suspended for one instance of someone catching him with a gun in the car. But this is a multiple instances player. This is not the first time he's gotten in trouble with the league, and he already had to talk to Adam Silver about this. So yeah, he should be suspended because he didn't learn his lesson the first time. He already got suspended for 8 games, and then he got in trouble again. Yeah, that should be a rule for suspension because he broke the code of conduct of the NBA. Now, I've heard people say well, he should get a year. I don't think it should be a year, just because thankfully no one got hurt when he flaunted the gun. No one got hurt, no one got shot, and technically what he did was not illegal. Technicality here. But already getting in trouble multiple times with this that's suspension time. That's maybe I'd say a quarter, the first quarter of the NBA season, suspend him. Really make him learn his lesson. I wouldn't say a full year. Now, if someone got hurt, then yes, suspension. Suspend him. Get him out of here because he is a danger, and it's not right. And I would just go about it that route if I was the NBA. Just because you got to make an example. Just because he is a star and he's a rising star does not necessarily mean he's going to get out of this. It just isn't. And that should be a high standard you should hold anybody, in a professional athlete, setting. Now, what Ja Morant does outside of the public, in the private, is his derogatory. It doesn't, or not derogatory. His whole thing. That's it. What everyone does privately in their own their little corner of the world is their business. If he wants to have weapons, it's a country where it's allowed. No matter what, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on. I know I have my opinions and I know how people have others. Whichever spectrum you decide to be on the whole gun issue is your thing. But when you're in public and that's happening and you can clearly see this and someone's IG living it, and that's kind of the worst part because we live in a time and era where everyone can record you doing anything. And that's the scarier part. If you are a public figure like Ja Morant, they can record you doing anything at any time. And, that person that was in the car with them got him with the gun. And like I said, if it's in his private time, whatever he's interested in, there's nothing I could do about it. But when it's public like that and you already got in trouble and you're not learning your lesson like you say you are, yeah, you should be suspended. You should. Just because, yes, you should. And to kind of end on it with this note, Ja, I would honestly, if I was him, think about who he's hanging out with. Because the guy that recorded him, what was the point? Why did he go to IG Live with him in the car? What was the whole point in that? I didn't understand why he had to do that. I think Ja should really consider who he's really associating himself with, because that's not right. He knows he's already in trouble. It was news all over the country that Ja got in trouble. It's not the first time Ja's gotten into an incident with the NBA. He's already had to talk to the commissioner. And usually when you have to talk to a commissioner and it's not about something good, that's not, that's already like, hey, you're already kind of rolling on thin ice here because you had to go talk to someone, and that's not good. So I think he should reconsider who he's hanging around because they're getting him in trouble. Now there are times where he's getting himself into problems, like this situation and the Foot Locker thing and whatever happened with the Pacers, but those people around him are kind of hurting him, and it's not good. It just isn't, and he should really reconsider that. That should be one of his things he needs to go sit down and think about, because they're the one, that guy did not have to go on IG Live with him in the car. You can record or whatever, and I don't know if it's because they need a validation that they know Ja Morant or whatever, which you don't even need to. If you know Ja Morant, you know Ja Morant. If you have if you want any validation, if you have a picture with the guy, that should be enough. You don't have to go on IG Live with him there for what? To show off that you know Ja Morant? To get a couple more people to follow you on Instagram? For what? For views and likes? To kind of be more out there, use Ja's image to boost your life? No. You shouldn't need to. If that's if that's a friend of yours, you don't need that. You just don't. You really don't. And I stand by that. I would not do that to someone, especially if I knew they are at a higher public figure than I am. Yeah, I would probably be careful with what goes out in public and what doesn't, because not everything needs to be out there, and that's just true. Not everything needs to be out in the public. Not everything needs to be posted on Instagram, Facebook. Your private life is your private life, and that's it. And that's how it should. And that's what Ja Morant should really think about, and probably take into consideration when he goes about this. Alrighty, so next topic for the NBA.
Interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey everybody, Chris from the C.A.V. Sports Podcast, and I want to give you guys a major announcement. The C.A.V. Sports Podcast will have a live episode. Join me June 16th through the 18th at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center for West Texas Comic-Con. Make sure to get your tickets today. And on June 17th, we will be having a special taping of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast with special guest Butterbean the Boxer. I want to thank Goldmine Collectibles and West Texas Comic-Con for even making this happen. I'm super excited. Remember, June 17th at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center, live, the C.A.V. Sports Podcast will be going with special guest Butterbean. See you there. The NBA. So round 2 is finished. They're in the Western and the Eastern Conference Finals right now. But I did get this question was kind of popping up everywhere, and I was a little interested to give my two take here. Who was the bigger disappointment from the last round? Was it Embiid and the 76ers, or was it the Nuggets or was it Phoenix not beating the Nuggets and not making it to the finals? I'm gonna say the Suns. Here's why I say the Phoenix Suns. They got Kevin Durant. They traded away so much draft capital to get Kevin Durant from the Brooklyn Nets, and they came up that short against a very good Nuggets team. Now, I said this before to somebody that if the Suns lost by 3, they lost in a close game, I think we would not be having a big problem about this, because they tried to get it to Game 7. They lost 4-2 in the series, but they tried to force Game 7. It just didn't work out. Some nights are not your nights. I get it. Then that's kind of that situation. It's like, okay, well, they came up short in Game 6 in the big game. It's disappointing, but at least they tried. They lost so bad the other night, 125-100. That is such a disappointing score. And even in the first half of the game, they were getting blown out. That is not what you expect from a very loaded Phoenix Suns team. With Devin Booker and KD and everyone they have on that team, there's no way they should have lost, at least be that bad. I know the Nuggets are good. Jokic is great. Jamal Murray's been playing great. Michael Porter Jr. has been doing good. But still, you traded all of your draft capital away to get Kevin Durant, to get you over the hump, to get you to the finals, and it didn't happen. That's why I'm saying I think they were the bigger disappointment out of the two games because like the Suns were probably on paper set to go to the finals. Embiid and the Sixers, I mean, it was 50-50 about it, but I mean, they had to get past Celtics, which not many people were sure if they were going to be able to do that in the first place. But everyone saw the Suns being this dominant team. Everyone had the Suns going to the finals. I know Vegas had their odds high to get to the finals, and they didn't get there. They didn't even make it to the Western Conference Championship. So what are they going to do here? Because they don't have much. They don't have much draft capital to work with. They still have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like CP3 still on the team. What are they gonna do from here? Like you can only go up from here, but they're gonna have to reset something. Something's gonna have to change. Whether it be Monte Ellis getting fired, bringing in new personnel, they trade away DeAndre Ayton or CP3. Whatever they gotta do, they gotta figure it out because they don't have a lot to work with, and they don't have a lot of first round picks left because they traded away for Kevin Durant. So whether it be they may ship off KD, whatever they may decide, is that they're going to have to reset something because getting that close but not even getting the Western Conference Championship and you, on paper, have a really, really good lineup, it's disappointing. It very is. And that's why I think they were the most disappointing out of the two losses. But I'm not going to let the 76ers and Embiid get off that easy. They lost too. And they played bad in the final game, in the Game 7. They played horrible. They just did. Embiid had 15 points, but he was 5 for 8. Harden, 3 for 11 with 9 points. Even though everyone was praising that MVP Harden was back. Everyone was saying Harden is saving Embiid. 9 points in Game 7. MVP Joel Embiid, who won it this year after people were freaking out if he was going to win it again, if he was ever going to win it or if he was going to win it this year. MVP Embiid, 15 points and you were 5 for 18. In the biggest game, you cannot do that. You just can't. You're fighting for MVP. Everyone's trying to make the case for you to win it over Jokic. At this point, Jokic looks like he should have won MVP because he's taken his team farther than Embiid did. And Embiid lost in a bad way in Game 7 with James Harden. And what was the result of this? This resulted in Doc Rivers getting fired. Because Doc Rivers is not there anymore. As of the other day, he got fired. Now, I do like Doc Rivers, although we do have to acknowledge that I believe he's 0-10 in Game 7s in his career. He hasn't gotten past the Eastern Conference Finals with Embiid and Harden there. I don't think he should have been I don't think he should have been fired this year, but if it would have happened again, like maybe next year, then yes, I can see maybe let's fire Doc Rivers. But I mean, Harden doesn't want to work with Doc Rivers anymore. Embiid played horrible. There's no Ben Simmons scapegoat to get you out of it. So who are they going to look at? I don't think they should have fired Doc Rivers, but I knew that, will they fire him is another question. Should they? Probably not. Will they? I don't know. Just because I do like Doc Rivers, I think he's an excellent coach, but he's got to get over that hump. But just the disappointment in that game and just how poor they did was just mind-boggling to me. It really was. Just because, and don't get me wrong, Jason Tatum, 51 points, breaking the record into Game 7, played phenomenal. Jason Tatum, we've seen it. We've all seen how great Jason Tatum can be. But he wasn't even the MVP. Joel Embiid was, and Joel Embiid could not win it in Game 7. Like I said, I can understand because the final game, the final score, I believe, was 112-88. If the score was any closer, if it was like the same situation with the Suns, if it was maybe a 3-point game or you're down by 5 or less, we can say something different. We could say it was a good game, just maybe it wasn't their night. Maybe their shots weren't going down. If Embiid had 30 points, I think this is a whole different conversation. If Harden would have had more than maybe 15 to 20, and Embiid had about 25, I think we'd be having a whole other conversation. We may have another team in the Eastern Conference Finals, but sadly, that's not what happened. And now with Doc Rivers gone, I don't know who they're going to hire to coach the 76ers. It is not a guarantee Harden's going to be there because Harden's already wanting to go back to Houston or he wants to go to Phoenix, whichever. But I don't know how Phoenix is going to get him because I don't know if he's a free agent or not, but if they have to trade for him, they really don't have much to trade for James Harden. And if he goes to Houston, James Harden is going to have to lead a team with just 20-year-olds. And that's hard to do, especially someone at his caliber at his point in his career, because he's not the same James Harden as he was when he first got to Houston. He had showed glimpses of it in the playoffs, but he just didn't overall. There were times where he played just like this, and Embiid had to show out. And that's the concerning part. So whether Harden wants to stay in Philly or not, or he wants to go back to Houston and be comfortable because he has family out there, he loved it in Houston. I mean, who knows why we all probably know why he liked it in Houston, but I digress in that one. But that was another disappointing game. And, I mean, congratulations to the Celtics and the Nuggets for going to their conference championships. They're both really good teams. Like I said, the Nuggets are just great. Jokic has been phenomenal. Jamal Murray, when he gets it going, he gets it going. Michael Porter Jr. has had a great year. And Jason Tatum for the Celtics, sometimes he can be too much. And I'm very excited to see how they're going to do. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta see it from that perspective that if you're the MVP, you gotta show out. You just have to. You can't be great in season and expect to, be not as great in the playoffs just because what, you finally won the MVP and you're like, okay, never mind. No, you should always be great, especially in playoffs. In playoffs is probably like your time you want to be great, because if you're not, that's going to be a problem. Alrighty, so finishing up with the topic of the NBA, the Spurs got the number 1 pick in the draft lottery last night. So congratulations to the San Antonio Spurs. Their tanking has worked. The tanking has worked, and they're going to get Victor Wemby. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his full last name, but I know he goes by Wemby. It's very exciting. I think that's great. This is something the Spurs definitely need after kind of the downhill couple of years that they've had. After Kawhi left and Duncan retired, Tony retired, Manu retired, DeJounte Murray going to Atlanta, Lonnie Walker's in LA. Didn't really work out with DeMar DeRozan, and LaMarcus Aldridge. We saw what happened, and I think getting the number 1 pick and getting this player, Victor, it's gonna help him out. Just because they definitely need it. 7 foot. I think he's like 7'3". He can move. He can shoot the 3. He's a phenomenal player. Only concern I have about Victor is his size, not necessarily his height, but like how thin he is. But I think that just hitting the gym with the guys, or give him that Greg Popovich coaching, I think that it's going to help. Now, I will say though, a fair warning for Greg Popovich is that he's not going to be he shouldn't coach at least these younger players like he did Duncan and Tony and Ginobili. It's a different generation. Some players back then can work off, ex-military training, always yelling at you in your face, whatever. But obviously we saw it with Kawhi, because Kawhi started not liking to be with Greg Popovich. And we saw that. Kawhi was a great example of it, because it didn't work out there, and he essentially quit on the Spurs. I will stand and say that he did quit on the Spurs, because there were times, I believe, apparently it was found out that he didn't really have any knee issues. He just didn't want to play for the Spurs anymore. And I think that him quitting on the Spurs to go to Toronto and win a championship, and then, everyone retiring for the Spurs, and now it's coming full circle. Now just, kind of slowly tanking and not doing well, trading away DeJounte and Lonnie Walker. Now with Victor coming in, I think this is going to be the player they need, but if I'm Greg Popovich, I would go about it in a different direction, just because, the younger generation that's coming in, a lot of them can't work being yelled at. It's pretty evident. A lot of people have to change, how they go about coaching style, teaching, whatever. You have to go about it different, just because it is a different generation that's coming in. And a lot of them won't work with you if you just scream and yell at them. It's the sad truth. It is true. Some players do work like that. Some players do. But most of the new players coming in, you can't teach them like that. It just doesn't work, and you're not going to get a good reaction out of them, and you're not going to get a good feedback from them. And I think that's going to be the issue. So if Greg Popovich could maybe change that up, I know he's, like I said, he's ex-military. He's been coaching this way a long time. He has 5 rings to prove that his method works. But not having Duncan there to kind of, rally the troops in the locker room and say, hey, that's just Pop. you're gonna have to think of some. You have to go about this a whole different way, and I think that's gonna be the route that Greg Popovich is gonna have to take with Wemby coming in and when they pick him up with the first pick of the draft. But either way, congratulations to the San Antonio Spurs for getting the number 1 picked. The tanking paid off, and now you guys are gonna get a pretty good player in Wemby. All right, so next topic, the NFL. Hey everybody, I just want to take a real quick pause from the podcast to introduce our first sponsor, One Guy from Italy on University. One Guy from Italy on University is a local Lubbock restaurant located right next to Texas Tech University. They have some of the best food in town. I know personally, I go order the house calzone is my favorite, and also they have been voted to have the best calzones in Texas. So if you're ever in Lubbock, Texas, make sure you guys stop by One Guy from Italy on University, and thank you guys for being our first sponsor of the podcast. Now, let's get back to the episode. The NFL, got some NFL stuff. Not really anything newsworthy, but kind of some interesting topics that I did hear about, and I kind of have an opinion to say. So, we're going to go to the AFC East. Who do I think is going to be a bigger threat, in the whole AFC conference, if it's going to be the Bills or the Jets? I'm going to say the Bills. Here's why I say the Bills. Because the Bills, at least with Josh Allen and that team, have been consistently good. Barring the fact that Josh Allen has thrown a lot of interceptions last season. He was right behind Dak Prescott, for everyone to know, because Dak threw 15, but he threw 14. So keep in mind, Josh Allen was right behind him. Even with that, Josh Allen and the Bills still did really well, and they made a little run in the playoffs. So I think between him and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets it's gonna be the Bills, because they've been consistent. What they've been doing is working. Now with Aaron Rodgers coming in for the Jets, we don't know how it's gonna work. On paper, this should be a really good team. They should be a contender for the AFC Championship along with the Chiefs. However, we all saw what happened with Russell Wilson when he went to Denver. It didn't work out. So I'm not saying that this may happen again, but that's not something that we should not take into consideration, that may happen, because we saw it. We saw what can happen when you bring in a new veteran quarterback who's proven himself and put him in a new situation. Sometimes it just doesn't work like how you want it to, and that's the concerning part. And that's what I think for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, just because of who Aaron Rodgers is. Now, I do know that there was a report that he's hanging out with players. He's getting to know his, some of the players like Sauce Gardner. There's only one issue with that whole situation. Sauce Gardner doesn't play offense. Sauce Gardner plays defense. So unless he's going to throw a lot of interceptions this season, which I know a lot of Jets fans probably hope that's not the case, that's not the people you need to be hanging out with. And I believe they said like Alan Lazard was there when they were hanging out, but Alan Lazard and Aaron Rodgers already had some sort of connection because they were both in Green Bay. I haven't heard anything from Garrett Wilson. Now, I know he said he's excited. I mean, who wouldn't be excited for Aaron Rodgers to come into their organization and help them out? Especially with who they had at quarterback is not working. So, with him coming in, I do think it's going to make him a little bit of a tougher opponent. I do think so. But I still think the Bills are going to run away with it because they've been consistent. And if they can just help out Josh Allen a little bit more, maybe take away the rushing attempts from Josh Allen, I think they'll be pretty good. And if he can lower the interceptions, because he threw a lot last season. I believe after playoffs, he threw the most. He had 18 or 17. So he was pretty high up there. He was right behind Dak Prescott. So if he can lower that and maybe less rushing attempts just so he doesn't get hurt, I can see them still being a threat in the AFC. Because we still can't, because I don't think they're a bigger threat than Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think so. Because Joe Burrow is still going to be there and he's still going to be great. Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be the biggest, toughest opponent in the AFC and the Chiefs. But I think that the Bills are going to be more of a threat to them than I do think the Jets, just because the Jets are going to take some time. Now, I think maybe if Aaron Rodgers stays there for a couple years, then I do think that they're going to end up being the bigger threat because he gets time to develop with his team. He can learn a little bit about how each of his players work. I don't know, like I said before, that this first year for the Jets is going to be like what everyone expects it to be. We're going to possibly win the AFC East, which I don't think so because the Bills are still there. And Tua Tagovailoa is coming back, and he was pretty good before he got the first concussion. So, and Belichick and the defense is still there. So it's not like it's not like cakewalk like it was whenever he was with Green Bay, because he basically had cakewalk up until the past couple years with the Vikings, but he was able to control that NFC North. But now in the AFC, he has a lot more competition in just his division alone with, like I said, Tua Tagovailoa and that pretty good Miami Dolphins offense with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, you name it. And then you still got the Bills, who have a consistently good defense with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. So that's another team you really can't count out. So I do think that the Bills will be a tougher opponent. However, though, I think the Jets will be tougher down the road. Like in another couple years or so, they will be the tougher opponent. But for now, I think the Bills are going to be the biggest concern in the AFC compared to the Jets. Alrighty, so next topic for the day. So with the schedules being released this past week, we saw kind of the difficulty grade of each team. The Philadelphia Eagles had the hardest, and my Dallas Cowboys were tied for the fourth. So who do I think is going to win the division? I think it's going to be the Cowboys. Here's why I think so. Because the Eagles, keep in mind, they just lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. Yeah, they have the Georgia Bulldogs. Everyone's joking that they're the Philadelphia Bulldogs at this point. I get it. But a lot of them aren't going to start. Let's keep that in mind. They got Jalen Carter for when Fletcher Cox retires. They brought in Nolan Smith for when Brandon Graham retires, which is probably not going to be till next season. And then they brought in some offensive linemen for when Jason Kelce retires, which we don't know when he's going to do it. That's my thing, is a lot of the people they brought in are probably not going to start this upcoming year, because they brought back their veterans to help them out. And they still, to my knowledge, they still haven't replaced their coordinators yet. Yes, Stefanski's still there. I get it. But the coordinators are kind of what help it out, and there's no defensive coordinator there. He's in Arizona. And I forgot where the offensive coordinator went. But either way, that they're going to need coordinators to come in, and they don't have that. And now they have a real tough schedule ahead of them. Now, I don't think that the Cowboys are going to win this like by a landslide, because we have a real tough schedule this year as well. But I do think that we're going to win it very close. We're going to win it by a game or two or half a game, because both teams are going to beat the Commanders and the Giants. I really don't see either of them beating the Cowboys or the Eagles. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles will split the series. I think that each team will have the home advantage, and that's where they'll win. The Eagles will win in Philly, and the Cowboys will win in Dallas. That's what I completely believe. But it's going to depend on who's going to have the better record when Week 17, Week 18 arrives. That's what I think it's going to come down to, is who's going to win the division at the last game. That's who I think is going to win it and go represent the NFC East, and who's going to get the wild card. I think both are still going to have good records. I think the Cowboys are going to get at least 10 wins. 10. I don't know if we'll get 12. I really don't. But I do think we'll at least get between 10 and 12. Now, the Eagles got 13. I don't know if they'll get 13. They may get between 11 and 13. So kind of a median 12, and maybe the Cowboys max 12. And that's what I mean. I think it's going to be a closer race than it was last year. Because last year it was not very close. But this year it's going to be a little different. Just because, like I said, the schedules are going to be very difficult for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys, it's a little bit easier, but it's not as bad. Because let's be honest, last season the Eagles did have a pretty easy schedule. A lot of the games that they played, there's a reason why they blew them out, or at least they beat them, because they played against some real easy teams. Most of the AFC South that they went up against blew them out of the water, except for the Texans, and the Colts. But they were able to make it work. And the Cowboys, we had a decent schedule. It wasn't super easy like I believe the Eagles had it, but they did have a little bit of an easier schedule than probably some others. I will agree to that. And now it's flipped. The Eagles have the hardest, which makes sense because they had the best record in the NFC, and then the Cowboys have the fourth hardest, or they're tied for the fourth hardest. So I believe that the Eagles and the Cowboys, it's going to be a close race going into next season, but I think the Cowboys are going to win it at the end. They're going to win it, then hopefully we can do it, because we also saw that the NFC East has not had a consistent or a two-time winner in I believe about 20 years. So I think that's another reason to have faith on our side. And like I said, I really don't see the Giants doing super well, nor the Commanders. So we'll just have to wait and see what's going to go on with that. But I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to cut it real close at the end, and that's how at least the season for the NFC East is going to end. Alrighty, so final topic for today. So this is kind of something that was brought up a little bit from some of the show earlier today. They named their top 5 teams in the NFC. So who do I have for my top 5? I'm gonna give number 1 to the Eagles. Just because they were at the Super Bowl last year. I'm gonna give it a tie for the 49ers and the Cowboys, which I'll explain right now. I believe number 4 I think it'll be Seattle, because they added Jackson Smith and Jigba to that offense. Geno Smith has no excuse to not be good this year with Kenneth Walker in the backfield, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then Witherspoon being added to the new Legion of Boom. They're probably going to win the NFC West, or they're going to be competing with the 49ers. And then final is going to be the Lions. I think the Lions are actually going to be pretty good, because last year they were pretty close, and they eliminated Aaron Rodgers from getting into the playoffs, and I think they can be great, but let's go to the 49ers first. Here's why I had the 49ers and the Cowboys tied. The 49ers don't have a quarterback right now, and they don't have a quarterback that they may trust. Like I said, Trey Lance, injury prone. We don't know what he's going to be because he's been injured. Brock Purdy is coming off surgery, and we don't know how the healing process is going. We don't know if he can throw as well as he did last year. And then you have Sam Darnold, who, he proved that he can play in Carolina, but now that's why they brought him in case they need him. So, who's going to play, though? Who's going to be that quarterback that's going to step up and play? Now, their offense is really good. Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Brendan Ayuk, Curtis Samuel, they have weapons, and George Kittle. And then they have a pretty stellar defense. So we can't take that away from them, which I don't. But they don't have a quarterback. They don't have at least a quarterback that they may trust. Trey Lance is probably going to be out the door already. He's probably going to leave. He's probably going to be traded. Someone's going to probably want him during the season. I predict maybe the Raiders, if Garoppolo goes down, they may try to go, well, no, maybe not. But someone may need him. You never know. And then Brock Purdy. We don't know the health status of him. We don't know if he's going to be the same Brock Purdy like he was last year. He was Mr. Relevant. And then Sam Darnold's in there to at least kind of be the backup, either the backup or the third string to help in case anything goes wrong. So I think that's the dilemma that the 49ers have. That's why I don't have them at number 2. They have a great team on paper, but they don't have a quarterback. But here's why I have them tied with the Cowboys. The Cowboys, on the other hand, have a quarterback in Dak Prescott. Now, whether he'll play as last year's Dak Prescott or 2021 Dak Prescott is gonna be what's the question here, because Ezekiel Elliott's gone. He's been cut, so you're gonna roll with Tony Pollard and Ronald Jones and probably Deuce Vaughn, who got drafted. They added help to the defense in Stephon Gilmore. They brought back Donovan Smith and the Wolf Hunter. They drafted Mozzie Smith to D-tackle, which is going to help with the whole run stuff situation. We still have D-Law and Sam. Micah Parsons is still there. Trayvon Diggs is still there. And then we added help to offense. On top of CeeDee Lamb, we added Brandon Cooks. And then we put Michael Gallup at 3. And then we helped the tight end, which I believe was our weakest link, was the tight end position when Dalton Schultz left. Now we brought in Shoemaker, who is probably going to be second or third, but he can block, or he could be wide out with Hendershot. And we also still have Ferguson, who is a trench, and he can block. So I think the Cowboys and the 49ers teams are just like this. They're two parallel to each other, but the one difference and what makes them tied is going to be Dak Prescott being the quarterback that the Cowboys believe in, and the 49ers don't have a quarterback that they believe in right now. Like I said, Trey Lance is probably going to be out the door. Brock Purdy, injured. Sam Darnold, question mark. And that's where I have the tie here, because there's a lot of question marks at that QB spot, which is the most important spot on the football team. And then with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, we added a lot of stuff, but Mike McCarthy is going to start calling plays since Kellen Moore is not there anymore. So we don't know what that's going to look like. He did have a top offense the 9 years out of the 10. He did call plays for the Green Bay Packers, but he did have Aaron Rodgers, so it's a toss up here. It's gonna be a toss up on what's gonna happen with that offense. I think that's what doesn't that's the reason why I don't have the Cowboys at number 2 instead of the 49ers. Is because I don't know what our offense is gonna look like with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. As of right now, I don't know what it's gonna look like. It's very hard for me to picture it. But the 49ers don't have a QB to throw, and we all saw what happened when they faced the Philly with no quarterback. I mean, just kind of common knowledge. You probably can't do anything without a quarterback. So, but now I'm going to move on to Seattle. Seattle, because they added on to their new Legion of Boom with Devin Witherspoon, and they brought in Jackson Smith and Jigba to that really good offense for Geno Smith with Kenneth Walker, the MSU running back, who was probably going to be Rookie of the Year if he didn't get hurt. And then DK Metcalf, who is a really good wide receiver, and Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett could probably go to slot now because he's just a speedster. He can go down. He could probably beat the wide receiver, not the wide receivers. He can beat the defensive backs. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba was pretty relentless at Ohio State. So with those additions to an already pretty good team, I think they're going to probably be one of the top teams in the NFC. I for sure think they're going to make wild card. They were 9-8. I don't see them going 12 wins. I maybe see them getting 10 or 11. They were 9-8 last season until they got destroyed by the 49ers. I will say, though, the only issue I have is that Geno Smith struggled against the whenever the run game wasn't working. He struggled. So if he can improve on that, I think the Seahawks will be completely fine. But seeing how much he struggled when Kenneth Walker wasn't there and when there was no running game, that was a little bit of the concern I had for Seattle, and that was kind of there's Geno Smith. That's the Geno Smith we've seen. There's a reason why he was a second string or third string quarterback for a long time. And I mean, everyone knew that they brought in Geno Smith just so they can tank and probably get Bryce Young, which ended up not happening. But with the strong running back like Walker and the weapons that he has, and now they brought in another weapon for him to throw to, it's gonna be beneficial for him. And like I said, the defense getting stronger with Witherspoon being added to that defensive secondary, they're gonna be a pretty good team. They're gonna most likely compete with the 49ers for the NFC West title. Between them two, and then I don't know if LA is gonna be that great. They lost some of their special players, like Allen Robinson got traded, so they don't have him, so they're only gonna run with Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford. Who knows if Cam Akers is gonna be great again, and then it's a big question mark in Arizona because no one has a clue what's going on in Arizona. So we'll see with that, with Jonathan Gannon, the former defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, being there. So no one's going to know what's going to happen. DeAndre Hopkins may not be there. Budda Baker may not be there come next season, this upcoming season. Who knows what may happen? But that's who I have being for number 4. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, number 4. Number 5 is going to be the Lions. Here's why I think the Lions. Green Bay, I don't know if they're going to be good with Jordan Love. I think it's going to take a second. Just because, like I said in the previous episode, that I do like that they gave Jordan Love a contract to get a little bit of a bigger sampling size for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers to see if their investment is going to be worth it. But do I think they're going to be good this year? I don't think they're going to be like great like some people may think they may be. I think they'll be kind of like mid-tier. But I think the Lions are probably going to win it, because they helped out on their defense, which I thought was their weakest link, because with the running backs that they had, now they brought in Amir Gibbs from Alabama, and they traded away Swift and Jamal Williams, which I thought was kind of a bad move, but I think that they're still going to be pretty good. Dan Campbell is a coach that those players believe in. They're all biting kneecaps. They're all living by his statements, so I think having him changing the culture and just giving that team a boost of confidence that they need. They addressed the defensive situation. I thought they were pretty good. I thought Jared Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, whenever he comes back after suspension, they had that offense going. I thought their weakest link was their defense, and I believe that they addressed it in the draft, outside of the running back position. I believe they addressed it in free agency. So I think that they're going to be good. They're going to be a lot better, and I think they're going to have a chance to get it to win the NFC North. The reason why I don't have the Vikings is because Kirk Cousins is still there. I think that crazy season he had last year is not going to happen again. I think Jordan Addison coming in for the Vikings is going to help, but he's still going to force the ball to Justin Jefferson. Because even when he had Adam Thielen, I mean, he's still just throwing it to Justin Jefferson most of the time, and T.J. Hawkinson being there. But there are times where T.J. Hawkinson just wasn't showing up. But with Jordan Addison coming in, it is going to help him out. But I still think the Lions are going to pull it off. I just have a gut feeling the Lions are just going to pull it off, and they're going to win that division. The Bears are going to be. I think they're in the right steps to change what's going on there and helping out Justin Fields. So I think they won't win it this year, but give them a couple years, they probably will do well for themselves. But we will have to see what happens with them. But I do think the Lions are number 5 because I believe they're going to be good. I really do believe the Detroit Lions are probably going to win the NFC North over the Vikings. I don't think Green Bay is going to do it. I don't think Chicago will win it this year, but I think the Lions are going to definitely have it this year. Alrighty, guys, well, that's going to wrap things up on this episode of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast. Make sure you guys follow me on all of my social media at C.A.V. Sports or C.A.V. Sports Podcast. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you name it. And just to kind of re-announce earlier, if you didn't catch it, so June 16th through the 18th is West Texas Comic-Con, and I will be there. It is at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center, and I will be having a live episode of the C.A.V. Sports Podcast there with special guest Butterbean the Boxer, so I'm very excited for that. Again, thank you to West Texas Comic-Con and Goldmine Collectibles for setting up and letting this happen. So if any of you are in either the Lubbock area or if you're coming in for Father's Day weekend, get your tickets at Goldmine Collectibles or, go to their social media. They're doing tons of giveaways. But June 17th, the C.A.V. Sports Podcast will be live in front of an audience with Butterbean the Boxer, and I will be at West Texas Comic-Con from June 16th through the 18th. But alrighty, that's going to wrap things up on this episode, and I'll catch you guys at the next one.